Welcome to our humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. Today on Races of the Worlds, we are going to cover an interesting little race, very odd appearing for a lot of people, called the Watchers. These are the shadow people that you see, the dark people, just the shadowy form. The black-eyed children fall under these categories or under this group because the black-eyed children are simply young watchers, which is why you'll find them doing things a little strange. But the watchers themselves, number one, let's start with the obvious. They do not carry ships. They don't use ships. They run essentially. They work out of sync with the rest of the vibratory rate of the third dimension, the world we live in, which is why they seem to vanish out of existence. They just simply alter the speed they're vibrating, that their molecules are vibrating at. And net result, they vanish from sight. They just kind of show up. They don't do anything. All they are is, we call them watchers because that's all they do. They simply record information. Now, do they interfere in anything? Do they put any input into it? No. They simply watch. Now, I've been asked a number of times about the black-eyed children, and if they're just watchers, why do they go into people's houses? Well, the reality of that is simple. They're children. Okay, they don't necessarily do what they're told, but they got to learn somewhere along the way. So what happens is they get told, go and watch this person, or go and watch this area. And then curiosity gets the better of them, and into the house they go. They are not, from anything I've run into and anything I've heard, and, for pity's sakes, if somebody out there has heard differently, let me know. Please, everything that I've come to understand is that they simply observe, they record, they report back. That's all they do. Okay, they're not here to cause a problem. Although, quite frankly, it can be rather disconcerting for somebody if you're sitting on your porch or on your balcony and you're sitting there watching and looking outside, and you see a shadowy figure off in the distance, just standing there, red eyes glowing like there's no tomorrow. It can be very disconcerting, very unnerving. But the Watchers are, as you can well imagine, black. Essentially, they are black in color. They don't really have a pigmentation. Not that you can tell anyway, because they don't tend to show up during the day. You may get the occasional one. Once in a while, what will happen is a watcher will observe an area during the day, but then they show up as a smoky outline. I've actually seen pictures where somebody accidentally caught a picture of one of these people, and it looked like just literally a smoky silhouette. Okay, but it's the same issue. They still do not interfere. The children can end up going inside, but that's because they want to see what's inside. At their age, they haven't figured out how to look through walls, which is what most of the watchers do. Now, watchers are fully telepathic. This is why they do not communicate well with people, why they don't talk a lot. Because they pick up what you're thinking. Okay, you can call it invasive if you will, but the reality is they're not doing anything with the information aside from recording the thought line. Okay, they have a tendency of just simply observing what's going on. Okay, they are, as many people that have seen them will attest, I'm sure, they are humanoid in appearance, as in 2 legs, 2 arms, and a head, along with a torso, all attached appropriately. Okay, they are literally, they're not exactly a hive mind, but they are a unified mind. When you're dealing with fully telepathic races, okay, they have the option of communicating directly without any conscious, without a real effort to it. Kind of like if you're watching TV and somebody's sitting in the room, you want to talk to them, you just don't even think about it, you turn and say whatever you will. Watchers are like that, but they don't speak per se. So, from my standpoint, I've never heard of one of them that has actually uttered vocal words. Okay, they are, much as they're fully telepathically linked, they do not communicate. It's not a hive mind. It's not that they can't think on their own. They all have their own guidelines, their own drives that are sending them places. And understand, you are dealing with a group that is, from their standpoint, they work as a unit. They don't technically have a leader per se. It's not, when we're talking about social layout. What we're talking about is a group that is literally, all they do is they observe. It all gets collected in the group consciousness. So everything that one learns, the rest of them get. But fortunately, they are very neutral. They simply want to know what's going on. If you will, curiosity in the extreme. Okay, they are, on average, your usual adults are somewhere between around the 5 foot in height. The critical factor when you look at a watcher, though, is most of the time you won't see their legs at all, or more to the point, you won't see their legs moving. They simply float where they want to go. Now, the children are still learning this, which is why you may see the black-eyed children move by foot, but not often. Even with the black-eyed children, you'll find that they basically float where they're going. But again, they're not a dangerous race. They're about as neutral as you can get. Okay. If they feel threatened, they will just simply vibrate out of existence. So you cannot track them anymore. Okay. So trying to get anything, people that are trying to figure out where they're going. Well, in all fairness, they're not technically going anywhere. But if you take your hand and, I'm going to show you on my hand, and you can replicate this yourself. When we talk about increased vibration, if I hold my hand steady, you can see it easy. If I move it really fast, it becomes hard to see. Okay, same idea. That's all the vibratory rate is. It's the cell, is the molecular superstructure is vibrating faster than what the human eye can actually track. And of course, you might be able to see them if you're using technology that can slow it down. But watchers don't technically vanish. Like, they don't teleport places. They just simply vibrate so fast you can no longer see them, and then they travel to wherever they're going. Which, by the time they slow down again, usually takes them way out of the area. Okay, so, I mean, this is one of those races. There's not a whole lot to them. They don't have a criminal, because they don't have a government, they don't have a hierarchy per se, and they have a unified mind. Because of the fact that they do not value the material world, they look at thought. That's all they go after. So there is no crime because the thoughts are given freely. They don't have material possessions. So it's sort of like, well, what are you going to have if you don't need to steal material and you don't have to, and the thoughts are given freely? Okay, well, nobody has to steal, therefore crime doesn't exist. It is simply a question of moving forward, getting information. And understand, one of the biggest differences between this race and any other race that I've run into is they have no functional motivation for expansion aside curiosity. Okay, so they will simply go where they can. They have been seen on starships because of the fact they wait for a starship to land somewhere on Earth, because the shadow people tend to start here, or at least that's what they did originally. Now you've got them on multiple different planets, and all they do is they wait for a ship to touch down, move onto the ship, wait for the ship to go to another place, and then get off the ship on that planet and explore it until they're done. That is what drives them. This is not a race that there is a lot of competition around, because they don't bother with it. They are strictly looking for information. And why? Because they can. Okay, they feed off of energy. And part of the problem there is they feed off of intense and calm background energy. So if everything is going smoothly, they are sustained. If you get somebody really happy, really giddy, they feel better, they feel more satiated, they feel fuller. Same as if you get somebody that is extremely volatile or very negative, very aggressive. They feed off of that too, but again, it's a heightened emotion, a heightened level of energy, which is what the shadow and the watchers look at. This is how it comes about. So, do they mind scaring people? It's not. They really don't mind. They don't go out of their way to do it, but it does happen. Humans tend to be a little skittish, but that's why, that's how they end up feeding, is they literally eat energy levels. When you're talking about reproduction, okay, they literally physically split. Okay, it is just simply a normal method of mitosis for them. And they will start as a single unit and then they will simply separate. Now you've got two. Fortunately, they don't do that very often. They usually do that when they're either feeling like they're threatened or they're coming to the end of their life. Okay, at which point they will split and start over. That is the normal reason they split, is because they've reached the end of their life. Okay, but when they split, even if they are badly hurt, the new form that they said that they essentially give birth to is in perfect health and extremely young. So of course now we've got to go through the learning curve again, because they do not come in knowing everything they need to do, aside from knowing that they are there to simply observe and report back. Now the funny part about it is the watchers do have a tendency of relaying the information back to the Zerziks, which are another energy race. Okay, and we will get to the Zerziks later. But right now, the watchers themselves, again, they've got no interest in any sort of conflict, no interest in any sort of acquisition. They simply feed off of energy, off of new information. That's it. But because they have a unified mind, when one of them feeds, the rest of them get a little. Okay, that's just the way it works. It's kind of like if you're filling a bucket with water, and you set the bucket in another bucket. Well, once the first bucket overflows, it'll fill up the bucket around it. Same thing. Once the watcher has fed enough, they will let their excess energy go to the rest of the races, and to the rest of the species. Okay, so I mean, this is where the watcher comes in. Okay, they are a fascinating race in as much as much as they are known throughout the multiverse. They don't exactly have an affiliation with anybody because nobody has anything they're looking for. The energy that they require is already there, and the heightened levels are garnered by people being curious, people being happy, people being upset. They're all levels of heightened energy level. Which, by the way, means if you go into a place that's war-torn and you've got a lot of negativity, it's very likely you'll find a watcher in that kind of an environment because they're feeding off the tension. They do not cause tension intentionally. Their presence on occasion can create that problem. But that's it. Now, there's not a whole lot of information, or there's not a whole lot of variation on the way they are. So we're going to leave this one a little on the shorter side, and we're going to close it down. We do have more information on a number of different races, a number of different things, and we're getting along with them. So if you like our video, absolutely give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe to our channel, okay, because there's a lot more information coming out, and we'd love to have you on board to join us on the journey. And until we talk again, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.